Hi class, welcome to our second to last lecture. This one is called The Groove. And the origins of this lecture actually is this lecture used to be called The Dogma of Dr. Cho. And it started because one student asked me, Dr. Cho, what are the kinds of things that you've learned in your career that have helped you? And actually I was inspired to go ahead and move forward with this, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. So the next version of The Groove is going to be different than this one. So how did this title, The Groove, come up? Well, the actual real origins of it is in Dr. Cho's wilder days. He used to do Taekwondo, and I was training for my black belt, blew my knee out, and that was pretty much it for me. But when I was first learning how to spar, it's like I was standing straight up and down, I was flat-footed, and I come in, and at my Taekwondo school in New Jersey, about a third of the people were Asian, a third were black, and a third were white. And I apologize if the story offends anyone, but this is what actually happened. And so while I came in, all of a sudden the guy who was teaching me how to spar just started laughing. And then I just kind of dropped my hands and froze because I didn't know what was so funny. And then he said to me, Are you white? And I said, not the last time I checked. And then he said to me, well, why are you fighting like a white man? And he told me, get up on the balls of your feet and move. And subsequently from Taekwondo, I learned the style of how I actually do experimentation. And that's that when you're squared up against an opponent, what you do is you come in and you try something. You experiment. And if it doesn't work, back out. You always move on a rotation. The reason why you move on a rotation and you're always circling, you get to see different angles of the problem, and not only that, but if you get hit, you are not going to get hit flush. You're going to get the cosine of the angle. And so then you go to another place, and then you go in and you come out and you keep experimenting. And then what eventually happens is you find that part that's vulnerable, and that's when you bring the house. Essentially, at that point, that's when you're going to see everything. Elbows, fists, knees, kicks, everything. And where the word groove came about is when I finally started learning how to spar correctly. And so I'm on the balls of my feet and I'm moving around. And the person who was teaching me started yelling at me. And he just said, move, move, that's it, in, out. And then he yelled, that's it, baby, groove, groove. And so ever since then, that word stuck out for me. But it actually is a word that makes sense, because when you get into the groove, things are a lot more effortlessly. So what's this premise of the groove? And the idea is that when you experiment, you are going into the unknown. And engineers call this going into the unknown research. Entrepreneurs call it hypothesis testing. Innovators call it validation. But in the end, the central part to all of this is you're dealing with uncertainty. And so, working with an uncertainty, it's more than an intellectual challenge. When you're going in the unknown, when you have no reference, where it's not clear where to go, it's a unique situation. And not only that, but because you're dealing with these emotional issues, you lose productivity due to emotional strain. And how do I get productivity? Well, it's how hard I want to work my drive times my intelligence, how I can figure things out, and that equals output. The problem is both drive and intelligence are functions of emotion. If you don't feel well, emotion affects your drive. If you have things bothering you, you don't think to your full IQ capacity. And so emotion impacts your production, which is how much progress I'm going to make, but also your efficiency. And that's how much is it going to cost me for you to take that step. If you're inefficient, it costs a lot. Yeah, you're making progress, but it's not happening quickly. And no, it's getting damn expensive. And so the premise of all this is that delving into the unknown is a unique situation. There are a lot of tools out there to do research, whether it's Lean Sigma or whatever, but they don't tell you how to cope and deal. And the proof of this is when you look at the success of people who work in uncertainty. Entrepreneurial success is about 10%. Pharma is less than 9.6%. PhDs take 4 to 7 years of research. And in order to find events that have this poor success, your chances of beating late-stage cancer is actually better than these odds in certain cases. That's how bad it is. So in terms of how we respond to uncertainty, we can respond to uncertainty with emotion. We get scared because it's uncertain. We get overwhelmed. We feel strain. And because you have to keep experimenting, there's baggage. It's hard to have failure after failure after failure. It takes a certain mentality to handle it. In terms of execution, you have no map. You don't know where to go. And not only that, you don't have a sense of direction because you have no compass. And so, how this relates, so how do we help fix all of this? Well, first we have to kind of understand how your head thinks. And so there are two kinds of processing your brain does. Conscious processing, and that's your cognitive ability to think through issues. The good thing about this is that a lot of intelligence, you can really think through things. The bad side of it is that you could be slow. I mean, it takes time to think through these things, and you're sensitive to emotion and how physically you feel. Automated processing has to do with ideas that suddenly pop in your head, things that you don't control. And yeah, it's fast, but typically, what is it based on? A lot of your ideas that pop into your head are based on your training. For example, this is why in the military they do repetition, because under stress, they don't want you thinking, they want you reacting. And so in terms of creativity, what creativity is about is your mind's ability to take one thing and match it with something else. And the people who are really good at it to take two things that don't seem like they belong together and can figure it out. So what the groove is about is developing ways, so the way we can get creativity and different ideas is we have to change the way we look at things. We have to create different points of views. And one way to do that is frameworks. Basically, let you look at problems in a different way. There's a lot of work done in these psychological fields like emotional intelligence and Myers-Briggs and everything else. But not a lot of work has been done related to uncertainty. So the solution is the groove. And the idea of the groove is first, there are guiding principles. There are things in the universe that you can take advantage of that will help you along. It has to do with first developing certain perspectives, taking advantage of potential energy that does exist in projects that people don't take care of, and also having the right orientation. Then it's about learning techniques, the mechanics, and it's about variable reduction and how you execute projects. And then finally, during execution, how do you emotionally handle those things that come about? And so what the groove is about is teaching you how to build those mindsets to execute under uncertainty. And we'll talk about the first set in the next video.